People, painted by Eugenie Delacroix in 1830, courtesy of Himal South Asian, January 2007, the South Asia Trust, नेपाल. ये चित्र समझ में आ गया क्या है ये? Subhash Rai's adaptation of Liberty Leading the Peoples, painted by Eugene de la Croix in 1830, courtesy of Hindi South Asian, January 2007, the South Asia Trust, Nepal. Now look at this. क्या है ये? कंटेम्प्रेरी साउथ एशिया की बात कर रहे हैं. सो लेट अस शिफ्ट आवर गेज फ्रॉम द लार्जर global developments in the post-Cold War era to developments in our own region, South Asia. When India and Pakistan joined the club of nuclear powers, this region suddenly became the focus of global attention. The focus was, of course, on the various kinds of conflicts in this region. There are pending border and water sharing disputes between the states of the region. Besides, there are conflicts arising out of the insurgency, ethnic strife, and resource sharing. This makes the region very turbulent. At the same time, many people in the South Asia recognize the fact that this region can develop and prosper if the states of the region cooperate with each other. In this chapter, we try to understand the nature of conflict and cooperation among the different countries of the region. Since much of this is rooted in or conditioned by this domestic politics of these countries, we first introduce the region and the domestic politics of some of the big countries in the region. ठीक है, अब उसके बाद नेक्स्ट जो है ये क्या है? ये identify some features common to all the South Asian countries but different from the countries in the West Asia or Southeast Asia. What is South Asia? What is South Asia? We are all familiar with the gripping tension during an India-Pakistan cricket match. We have also seen the goodwill and hospitality shown to the visiting Indian and Pakistani fans by their hosts when they come to watch a cricket match. And this is symbolic of the larger pattern of South Asian affairs. Ours is a region where rivalry and goodwill, hope and despair, mutual suspicion and trust coexist. Let us begin by asking an elementary question. What is South Asia? The expression South Asia usually includes the following countries: Bangladesh, Bhutan, India, Maldives, Nepal, Pakistan, Sri Lanka, and the mighty Himalayas in the north, and the vast Indian Ocean, the Arabian Sea, and the Bay of Bengal in the south, west, and east, respectively. Provide a natural insularity to the region, which is largely responsible for the linguistic, social, and cultural distinctiveness of the subcontinent, and the boundaries of the region are not as clear in the east and the west as they are in the north and the south. Afghanistan and Myanmar are often included in discussions of the region as a whole. China is an important player, but is not considered to be a part of the region. In this chapter, we shall use South Asia to mean the 7 countries mentioned in above. To mention above, thus defined, South Asia stands for diversity in every sense and yet constitutes one geopolitical space. The various countries in the South Asia do not have the same kind of political systems. Despite many problems and limitations, Sri Lanka and India have successfully operated a democratic system since their independence from the British. You will study more about the evolution of democracy in India in the textbook that deals with the politics in India since independence. It is of course possible to point out many limitations of India's democracy, but we have to remember the fact that India has remained a democracy throughout its existence as an independent country, and the same is true of Sri Lanka. Pakistan and Bangladesh have experienced both civilians and military rulers, with the Bangladesh remaining a democracy in the post-Cold War period. Pakistan began the post-Cold War period with the successive democratic governments under the Benazir Bhutto and Nawaz Sharif respectively, but it suffered a military coup in the 1999. It has been run by a civilian government again since 2008. Till 2006, Nepal was a constitutional monarchy with the danger of the king taking over executive powers. In 2008, the monarchy was abolished and Nepal emerged as a democratic republic. From the experience of the Bangladesh and Nepal, we can say that democracy is becoming an accepted norm in this entire region of the South Asia. Similar changes are taking place in the 2 smallest countries of the region. Bhutan became a constitutional monarchy in 2008 under the leadership of the king. It emerged as a multi-party democracy, and the Maldives and the other island nation was a sultanate till 1968 when it was transformed into a republic June 2005, and the parliament of the Maldives voted unanimously to introduce a multi-party system, and the Maldivian Democratic Party that is MDP, Maldivian Democratic Party, dominates the political affairs of the island, and the MDP, that is Maldivian Democratic Party, sorry, Maldivian Democratic Party won the 2018 elections. ठीक है, इधर क्या दिखा रखा है, ये दिखा रखा है डेमोक्रेसी इज preferred over the dictatorship everywhere except in the Pakistan. Those who agree with one of these statements, he has South Asia. इधर क्या दिखा रखा है, ऑरेंज कलर से डेमोक्रेसी इज प्रेफरेबल इन बांग्लादेश, इंडिया, नेपाल, पाकिस्तान, श्रीलंका दिखा रखा कितना कितना किसमें है. ठीक है, तो डेमोक्रेसी इज प्रेफरेबल बांग्लादेश 69, इंडिया 70, नेपाल 62, पाकिस्तान 37, श्रीलंका 71. समटाइम्स डिक्टेटरशिप इज बेटर, ये 10% है जो दिखा रखा है. बांग्लादेश में 6, इंडिया में 9, नेपाल में 10, पाकिस्तान में 14, श्रीलंका में 11. डज नॉट मैटर टू मी, इसको ना फ़र्क पड़ रहा है किससे, डिक्टेटरशिप से ना फ़र्क पड़ रहा है इसको डेमोक्रेसी से. तो बांग्लादेश 25, इंडिया 21, नेपाल 28, पाकिस्तान 49, श्रीलंका 18. क्या चीज़ दिखा रखा है ये, वेरी फ्यू डाउट द सुटेबिलिटी ऑफ डेमोक्रेसी फॉर देयर ओन कंट्री. हाउ सुटेबल इज डेमोक्रेसी फॉर योर कंट्री. ये वेरी सुटेबल बिल्कुल डार्क ब्लू है, एंड सुटेबल ऐसा दिख रहा है. तो साउथ एशिया में 88, बांग्लादेश में 93, श्रीलंका में 92, इंडिया में 92, पाकिस्तान में 84, नेपाल में 79. 0 to 50 to 100 ये क्या दिखा रखा है. बोथ दीज ग्राफ्स आर बेस्ड ऑन द इंटरव्यूज विद मोर देन 19,000 ऑर्डिनरी सिटीजन्स इन द 5 कंट्रीज ऑफ द साउथ एशिया. ठीक है, तो सोर्स क्या था इसका, SDSA टीम स्टेट ऑफ डेमोक्रेसी इन द साउथ एशिया, न्यू दिल्ली, ऑक्सफोर्ड यूनिवर्सिटी प्रेस 2007. इधर क्या दिखा रखा है, ये कंट्रीज है. SDG 3 लाइफ एक्सपेक्टेंसी एट बर्थ ईयर्स 2017 का दे रखा है. SDG 4.6 एडल्ट लिटरेसी रेट परसेंट एजेस 15 एंड ओल्डर 2006 to 16 का दे रखा है. SDG 4.1 ग्रोस एनरोलमेंट रेशियो सेकेंडरी 2012 to 2017 का दे रखा है. SDG 8.1 GDP पर कैपिटा 2011, PPP ये डॉलर 2017 जो भी है इस तरीके का दे रखा है. SDG 3.2 इन्फेंट मोर्टेलिटी रेट पर 1000 लाइव बर्ड्स 2016 का दे रखा है. SDG 3.3 TB केसेस पर 100,000 पीपल 2016 का दे रखा है. SDG 1.1 पॉपुलेशन लिविंग बिलो इनकम पॉवर्टी लाइन परसेंट PPP डॉलर 1.90 अ डे 2006 to 2016 दे रखा है. और SDI रैंक दे रखा है. तो वर्ल्ड डेवलपिंग कंट्रीज साउथ एशिया, बांग्लादेश, इंडिया, नेपाल, पाकिस्तान, श्रीलंका दे रखा है. यूनाइटेड नेशंस डेवलपमेंट प्रोग्राम ह्यूमन डेवलपमेंट रिपोर्ट 2018 दे रखा है. तो इतना सारा फैक्चुअल डाटा जो है वो तो याद होने से रहा, तो बस वैसे ही है, अगर देखना तो देख सकते हैं इसको हम. ये क्या क्वेश्चन दे रखा है यहाँ पे, आइडेंटिफाई सम फीचर्स कॉमन टू द ऑल द साउथ एशियन कंट्रीज बट डिफरेंट फ्रॉम द कंट्रीज इन द वेस्ट एशिया और साउथ ईस्ट एशिया. इधर क्या दे रखा है, क्या सोच रहा है, इज देयर अ फिक्स्ड डेफिनेशन ऑफ दीज रीजन्स, हु डिसाइड्स दैट. What is South Asia? We are all familiar with the gripping tension during an India-Pakistan cricket match. We have also seen the goodwill and hospitality shown to the visiting Indian and Pakistani fans by their hosts when they come to watch a cricket match. This is a symbolic of the larger pattern of the South Asian affairs. Ours is a region where rivalry and goodwill, hope and despair, mutual suspicion and trust coexist. Let us begin by asking an elementary questions. What is the South Asia? And the expressions South Asia usually includes the following countries: Bangladesh, Bhutan, India, the Maldives, Nepal, Pakistan and Sri Lanka. And the mighty Himalayas in the north and the vast Indian Ocean, the Arabian Sea and the Bay of Bengal in the south. West and east respectively provide a natural insularity to the region, which is largely responsible for the linguistic, social and cultural distinctiveness of the subcontinent. The boundaries of the region are not as clear in the east and the west as they are in the north and the south. Afghanistan and Myanmar are often included in discussions on the region as a whole. China is an important player but is not considered to be a part of the region. In this chapter we shall use South Asia to mean the 7 countries mentioned above, and thus define South Asia stands for the diversity in every sense and yet constitutes one geopolitical space. The various countries in the South Asia do not have the same kind of political systems. Despite many problems and limitations, Sri Lanka and India have successfully operated a democratic system since their independence from the British. You will study more about the evolution of democracy in India in the textbook that deals with the politics in India since independence. It is of course possible to point out many limitations of India's democracy, but we have to remember the fact that India has remained a democracy throughout its existence as an independent country. The same is true of Sri Lanka. Pakistan and Bangladesh have experienced both civilian and military rulers, with Bangladesh remaining a democracy in the post-Cold War period. Pakistan began the post-Cold War period with the successive democratic governments under Benazir Bhutto and Nawaz Sharif respectively, but it suffered a military coup in 1999. It has been run by a civilian government again since 2008. Till 2006, Nepal was a constitutional monarchy with the danger of the king taking over executive powers in 2008. The monarchy was abolished and Nepal emerged as a democratic republic. From the experience of the Bangladesh and Nepal, we can say that democracy is becoming an accepted norm in this entire region of the South Asia. Similar changes are taking place in the taking place in the two smallest countries of the region. Bhutan became a constitutional monarchy in 2008 under the leadership of the king. It emerged as a multi-party democracy, and the Maldives, the other island nation, was a sultanate till 1968, when it was transformed into a republic with a presidential form of government. In June 2005, the Parliament of the Maldives voted unanimously to introduce a multi-party system, and the Maldivian Democratic Party (MDP) dominates the political affairs of the island, and the MDP won the 2018 elections. Despite the mixed record of the democratic experience, the people in all these countries share their aspirations for the democracy. A recent survey of the attitudes of the people in the five big countries of the region showed that there is widespread support for the democracy in all these countries. Ordinary citizens, rich and as well as poor and belonging to the different religions, view the idea of democracy positively and support the institutions of representative democracy. They prefer democracy over any other form of the government and think that democracy is suitable for their country, and these are significant findings, for it was earlier believed that democracy could flourish and find support only in the prosperous countries of the world. इसके बाद जो नेक्स्ट है वो क्या है? नेक्स्ट जो है यहाँ पे टाइमलाइन दे रखा है, टाइमलाइन ऑफ साउथ एशिया सिंस 1947. 1947 में क्या होता है? इंडियन पाकिस्तान एमर्ज एज इंडिपेंडेंट नेशंस आफ्टर द एंड ऑफ द ब्रिटिश रूल. 1948 में श्रीलंका, देन सीलोन गेन्स इंडिपेंडेंस, इंडो पाक conflict over Kashmir. 1954 to 1955 में पाकिस्तान joins the Cold War military blocs SEATO, SEATO and CENTO. एंड 1960 में क्या होता है? इंडियन पाकिस्तान साइंस द इंडस वाटर ट्रीटी. 1962 में क्या होता है? बॉर्डर कन्फ्लिक्ट्स बिटवीन द इंडिया एंड चाइना. 1965 में क्या होता है? इंडो पाक वॉर, यूएन इंडिया पाकिस्तान ऑब्जर्वेशन मिशन. 1966 में क्या होता है? इंडिया एंड पाकिस्तान साइन द ताशकंद एग्रीमेंट, 6 पॉइंट प्रपोजल ऑफ द शेख मुजीब उर रहमान फॉर द ग्रेटर ऑटोनॉमी टू ईस्ट पाकिस्तान. 1971 मार्च में क्या होता है? प्रोक्लेमेशन ऑफ द इंडिपेंडेंस बाय द लीडर्स ऑफ द बांग्लादेश. अगस्त में क्या होता है? इंडो सोवियत ट्रीटी ऑफ फ्रेंडशिप साइन फॉर द 20 ईयर्स. एंड दिसंबर में क्या होता है? इंडो पाक वॉर, लिबरेशन ऑफ बांग्लादेश. 1972 जुलाई में क्या होता है? इंडियन पाकिस्तान साइन द शिमला एग्रीमेंट. 1974 मई में क्या होता है? इंडिया कंडक्ट्स न्यूक्लियर टेस्ट. 1976 में क्या होता है? पाकिस्तान एंड बांग्लादेश एस्टेब्लिश डिप्लोमेटिक ties. 1985 दिसंबर में क्या होता है? साउथ एशियन लीडर्स साइन द सार्क चार्टर एट द फर्स्ट समिट इन ढाका. 1987 में क्या होता है? इंडो श्रीलंका अकॉर्ड, इंडियन पीस कीपिंग फोर्स IPKF ऑपरेशन इन श्रीलंका 1987 टू 1990. 1988 में क्या हुआ था? इंडिया सेंड्स ट्रूप्स टू द मालदीव्स टू फॉइल अ कू अटेम्प्ट बाय mercenaries. इंडिया एंड पाकिस्तान साइन द एग्रीमेंट नॉट टू अटैक न्यूक्लियर इंस्टॉलेशंस एंड फैसिलिटीज ऑफ ईच अदर. 1988 टू 1991 में क्या हुआ था? डेमोक्रेसी रेस्टोरेशन इन द पाकिस्तान, बांग्लादेश एंड नेपाल. 1996 दिसंबर इंडिया एंड बांग्लादेश साइन दी फरक्का ट्रीटी फॉर शेयरिंग ऑफ गंगा वाटर्स. 1998 मई में क्या है? इंडिया एंड पाकिस्तान कंडक्ट न्यूक्लियर टेस्ट्स. दिसंबर में क्या है? इंडिया एंड श्रीलंका साइन द फ्री ट्रेड एग्रीमेंट FTA. 1999 में फरवरी में इंडिया PM वाजपेयी अंडरटेक्स बस जर्नी टू लाहौर टू साइन अ पीस डिक्लेरेशन. जून जुलाई कारगिल कन्फ्लिक्ट्स बिटवीन इंडिया एंड पाकिस्तान. 2001 जुलाई में क्या है? वाजपेयी मुशर्रफ आगरा समिट अनसक्सेसफुल. 2004 जनवरी में क्या है? साफ्टा साइंड एट द 12th सार्क समिट इन इस्लामाबाद. 2007 में अफगानिस्तान ज्वाइन सार्क एंड 2014 में नवंबर में द 18th सार्क समिट इन काठमांडू, नेपाल. So in that sense, the South Asian experience of democracy has expanded the global imagination of the democracy. Let us look at the experience of democracy in each of the four big countries of the region other than India, the military and democracy in the Pakistan. सबसे पहले पाकिस्तान की बात करते हैं. तो after the Pakistan framed its first constitution, General Ayub Khan took over the administration of the country and soon got himself elected. He had to give up office when there was popular dissatisfaction against his rule. This gave way to a military takeover once again under the General Yahya Khan. During the Yahya military rule, Pakistan faced the Bangladesh crisis, and after a war with the India in 1971, East Pakistan broke away to emerge as an independent country called the Bangladesh. After this, an elected government under the leadership of Zulfikar Ali Bhutto came to power in Pakistan from 1971 to 1977. The Bhutto government was removed by General Zia ul Haq in 1977. General Zia faced a pro-democracy movement from 1982 onwards, and a re-elected democratic government was established once again in 1988 under the leadership of Benazir Bhutto. In the period that followed, Pakistani politics centered around the competition between her party, the Pakistan People's Party, and the Muslim and the Muslim League. And the phase of the elective democracy lasted till 1999 when the army stepped in again and General Pervez Musharraf removed Prime Minister Nawaz Sharif. In 2001, General Musharraf got himself elected as the president. Pakistan continued to be ruled by the army, though the army rulers have held some elections to give their rule a democratic image. Since 2008, democratically elected leaders have been ruling Pakistan. Several factors have contributed to Pakistan's failure in building a stable democracy. The social dominance of the military, clergy, and land-owning aristocracy has led to the frequent overthrow of the elected governments and the establishment of the military government. Pakistan's conflict with India has made the pro-military groups more powerful. These groups have often said that political parties and democracy in Pakistan are flawed, and that Pakistan's security would be harmed by the selfish-minded parties and chaotic democracy, and that the army stay in the power is therefore justified. While democracy has not been fully successful in Pakistan, there has been a strong pro-democracy sentiment in the country. Pakistan has a courageous and relatively free press and a strong human rights movements. The lack of genuine international support for the democratic rule in the Pakistan has further encouraged the military to continue its dominance. The United States and other Western countries have encouraged the military authoritarian rule in the past for their own reasons, given their fear of the threat of what they call global Islamic terrorism and the apprehension that Pakistan's nuclear arsenal might fall into the hands of these terrorist groups. The military regime in the Pakistan has been seen as the protector of the Western interests in the West Asia and South Asia. इधर ये क्या दिखा रखा है, ये I am always good at कैलकुलेशन. अच्छा, इधर ये दिख रहे हो चित्र क्या दिखा रहे हैं हम. इधर क्या है, दिस कार्टून कमेंट्स ऑन द ड्यूअल रोल ऑफ पाकिस्तान्स रूलर परवेज मुशर्रफ एज द प्रेसिडेंट ऑफ द कंट्री एंड एज द आर्मी जनरल. रीड द इक्वेशंस केयरफुली एंड राइट द मैसेज ऑफ दिस कार्टून. यहाँ पे क्या दिखा रही है, इन जर्मनी कैन बी इफ जर्मनी कैन बी रीयूनाइटेड, व्हाई कांट द पीपल ऑफ इंडिया एंड पाकिस्तान एटलीस्ट ट्रैवल मोर इजीली टू ईच अदर्स कंट्री. इधर देखो क्या है ये, डेमोक्रेसी इन द बांग्लादेश. बांग्लादेश में क्या बताया गया है, बांग्लादेश वाज अ पार्ट ऑफ द पाकिस्तान फ्रॉम 1947 टू 1971. इट कंसिस्टेड ऑफ द पार्टीशनड एरियाज ऑफ बंगाल एंड असम from British India. The people of this region resented the domination of Western Pakistan and the imposition of the Urdu language soon after the partition. Soon after the partition, they began protests against the unfair treatment meted out to the Bengali culture and the language. They also demanded fair representation in the administration and a fair share in the political power. Sheikh Mujib-ur-Rahman led the popular struggle against West Pakistani domination. He demanded autonomy for the eastern region in the 1970 elections. In the then Pakistan, the Awami League led by the Sheikh Mujib won all the seats in the East Pakistan and secured a majority in the proposed Constituent Assembly for the whole of the Pakistan. But the government, dominated by the West Pakistani leadership, refused to convene the assembly. Sheikh Mujib was arrested the military rule of the General Yahya Khan. The Pakistani army tried to suppress the mass movement of the Bengali people and thousands were killed by the Pakistan army, and this led to a large-scale migration into India, creating a huge refugee problem for the India. And the government of India supported the demand of the people of East Pakistan for their independence and helped them financially and militarily. This resulted in a war between the India and Pakistan in December 1971 that ended in the surrender of these Pakistan forces in East Pakistan and the formation of Bangladesh as an independent country. इधर क्या है ये, इधर जो है ये है a mural in Dhaka University to remember Noor Hossain, who was killed by the police during the pro-democracy protests against General Arshad in 1987, painted on his back, "Let democracy be freed." Photo credit Shahidul Alam Drink. ठीक है, इधर क्या बात कर रहे थे हम, बांग्लादेश ड्राफ्टेड इट्स कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन डिक्लेयरिंग, ये हो गया था क्या, इधर हम पढ़ के आए थे डेमोक्रेसी इन बांग्लादेश. एक बार फिर से पढ़ते हैं. बांग्लादेश वाज अ पार्ट ऑफ द पाकिस्तान फ्रॉम 1947 टू 1971. इट कंसिस्टेड ऑफ द पार्टीशनड एरियाज ऑफ बंगाल एंड असम फ्रॉम द ब्रिटिश इंडिया, एंड द पीपल ऑफ दिस रीजन रिजेंटेड द डोमिनेशन ऑफ द Western Pakistan and the imposition of the Urdu language. Soon after the partition, they began protests against the unfair treatment meted out to the Bengali culture and the language, and they also demanded fair representation in the administration and a fair share in the political power. Sheikh Mujib-ur-Rahman led the popular struggle against the West Pakistani domination. He demanded autonomy for the eastern region. In the 1970 elections in the then Pakistan, the Awami League led by the Sheikh Mujib, won all the seats in the East Pakistan and secured a majority in the proposed Constituent Assembly for the whole of the Pakistan. But the government, dominated by the West Pakistan leadership, refused to convene the assembly. To convene the assembly, Sheikh Mujib was arrested under the military rule of the General Yahya Khan, and the Pakistani army tried to suppress the mass movement of the Bengali people. Thousands were killed by the Pakistan army, and this led to a large-scale migration into the India, creating a huge refugee problem for the India. And the government of India supported the demand of the people of the East Pakistan for their independence and helped them financially and militarily. This resulted in a war between the India and Pakistan in December 1971 that ended in the surrender of the Pakistani forces in the East Pakistani and the formation of the Bangladesh as an independent country. Bangladesh drafted its constitution declaring faith in the secularism, democracy and socialism. However, in 1975, Sheikh Mujib got the constitution amended to shift from the parliamentary to presidential form of the government. He also abolished all the parties except his own, the Awami League, and this led to the conflicts and tensions in a dramatic and tragic development. He was assassinated in a military uprising in August 1975. The new military rule, Ziaur Rahman, formed his own Bangladesh National Party and won elections in 1979. He was assassinated in another military takeover followed under the leadership of Lieutenant General H.M. Arshad. The people of Bangladesh soon rose in support of the demand for the democracy. Students were in the forefront. Arshad was forced to allow political activity on a limited scale. He was later elected as a president for the 5 years, and mass public protests made Arshad step down. Arshad stepped down in 1990. Elections were held in 1991. Since then, representative democracy based on the multi-party elections has been working in the Bangladesh. Now, monarchy and democracy in the Nepal. Nepal was a Hindu kingdom in the past and then a constitutional monarchy in the modern period for many years. Throughout this period, political parties and the common people of Nepal have wanted a more open and responsive system of the government. But the king, with the help of the army, retained full control over the government and restricted the expansion of the democracy in the Nepal. And the king accepted the demand for a new democratic constitution in 1990. In the wake of a strong pro-democracy movement, however, democratic governments had a strong and troubled career. During the 90s, the Maoists of Nepal were successful in spreading their influence in many parts of the Nepal. They believed in the armed insurrection. क्योंकि मेरे से अकेले पढ़ा नहीं जाता ना, दैट्स वाई. दे बिलीव्ड इन आर्म्ड इंसर्केशन अगेंस्ट द मोनार्क एंड द रूलिंग एलाइट. एंड बड़ी नसीबों से मेरे को ये टाइम मिला पढ़ने का, अदरवाइज मिलता ही नहीं है. दिस लेड टू अ वॉलेंट कन्फ्लिक्ट बिटवीन द माओइस्ट गुरिलाज एंड द आर्म्ड फोर्सेज ऑफ द किंग. फॉर सम टाइम देयर वॉज अ ट्रायंगुलर कन्फ्लिक्ट among the monarchist forces, the Democrats and the Maoists in 2002. The king abolished the parliament and dismissed the government, thus ending even the limited democracy that existed in the Nepal. देखो इधर क्या क्वेश्चन पूछा गया है. लेट्स नो मोर अबाउट द Bangladesh Grameen Bank. Can we make use of the idea to reduce the poverty in India also? इधर क्या है फिर नेक्स्ट. इन अप्रैल 2006 देयर वर मैसिव country-wide pro-democracy protests. The struggling pro-democracy forces achieved their first major victory when the king was forced to restore the House of the Representatives that had been dissolved in the April 2002. The largely non-violent movement was led by the seven-party alliance SPM, the Maoists and social activists. Nepal transition to the democracy is almost complete. Nepal has undergone a unique moment in its history because it formed a constituent assembly to draft the constitution. अच्छा. Draft the constitution for the Nepal. Some sections in the Nepal thought that a nominal, अभी तो अब छोटी बच्ची हो ना, अभी पढ़ो तो काम चल जाएगा, that a nominal monarchy was necessary for the Nepal to retain its link with the past. The Maoist group agreed to suspend armed struggle. They wanted the constitution to include the radical programs of the social and economic restructuring. All the parties in the SPA did not agree with this program, and the Maoists and some other political groups were also deeply suspicious of the Indian government. The Maoists and some other political groups were also deeply suspicious of the Indian government and its role in the future of Nepal. In 2008, Nepal became a democratic republic after abolishing the monarchy. In 2015, it adopted a new constitution. ठीक है. ओके उसके देखो इधर क्या है. ये नेपाल साउंड्स रियली एक्साइटिंग. आई विश आई वॉज इन नेपाल. ये लड़की बोल रही है. अब इधर देखो ये क्या दिख रहा है. इधर देखो ये क्या है. डेमोक्रेसी एक्टिविस्ट दुर्गा थापा पार्टिसिपेटिंग इन अ प्रो डेमोक्रेसी रैली इन काठमांडू in 1990. द सेकंड पिक्चर shows the same person in 2006, this time celebrating the success of the second democracy movement. ठीक है. फोटो क्रेडिट क्या है. ये मीन बाजराचार्य है. Ethnic conflict and democracy in the Sri Lanka. We have already seen that Sri Lanka has retained democracy. since its independence in 1948, but it faced a serious challenge not from the military or monarchy, but rather from the ethnic conflict leading to the demand for the succession by one of the regions. After its independence, politics in Sri Lanka, it was then known as the Ceylon, was dominated by the forces that represented the interest of the majority Sinhala community, and they were hostile to a large number of the Tamils who had migrated from the India to Sri Lanka and settled there. This migration continued even after the independence, and the Sinhala nationalists thought that Sri Lanka should not give concessions to the Tamils because Sri Lanka belongs to the Sinhalas people only. And the neglect of the Tamil concerns led to the militant Tamil nationalism. And from 1983 onwards, the militant organization, the Liberation Tigers of Tamil Illam, LTTE, was fighting an armed struggle with the army of Sri Lanka in pursuit of their demand for a Tamil Illam or separate country for the Tamilians of the Sri Lanka. At one point of time, the northeastern part of the Sri Lanka was controlled by the LTTE. ठीक है, इधर क्या दिख रहा है ये? Keshav the Hindu. The cartoon depicts the dilemma of the Sri Lankan leaderships in trying to balance the Sinhala hardliners of the lion and Tamil militants or the tiger while negotiating the peace. Okay, जाओ देख लो. The Sri Lankan problem involves people of Indian origin, and there was considerable pressure from the Tamil people in India to the effect that the Indian government should protect the interests of the Tamils in Sri Lanka. And the government of India has from time to time tried to negotiate with the Sri Lankan governments on the Tamil questions. But in 1987, the government of India for the first time got directly involved in the Sri Lankan Tamil question. India signed an accord with the Sri Lanka and sent troops to stabilize the relations between the Sri Lankan government and the Tamils. Eventually, the Indian army got into a fight with the LTTE. The presence of Indian troops was also not liked much by the Sri Lankans. They saw this as an attempt by India to interfere in the internal affairs of Sri Lanka. In 1989, the Indian Peacekeeping Force Peacekeeping Force pulled out of Sri Lanka without attaining its objective. The Sri Lankan crisis continued to be violent. However, international actors, particularly the Scandinavian countries such as Norway and Iceland, tried to bring the varying groups back to the negotiations. Finally, the armed conflict came to an end as the खैर मेरे बोर्ड के मार्क्स तो छोड़ो, मेरे एक भी एग्जाम क्लियर हो नहीं रहा है, मैं वैसे ही बहुत दुखी हूँ. कब मैं आईएएस बनूंगी. LTTE was vanquished in 2009. In spite of the conflict, Sri Lanka has registered considerable economic growth and recorded high levels of human development. मार्क्स का मतलब ये होता है कि आपने उस साल उस टाइम जो है अच्छे से पढ़ाई की थी. बाकी आप कितने इंटेलिजेंट हो कितने नहीं हो इससे कोई फ़र्क नहीं पड़ता. कुछ लोग ऐसे होते हैं जिनकी समझने की शक्ति बहुत अच्छी होती है, कुछ लोग ऐसे होते हैं जिनकी रटने की शक्ति बहुत अच्छी होती है. मेरे को ये नहीं समझ में आता मेरी रटने की शक्ति अच्छी है या समझने की है. मुझे ऐसा लगता है मैं रट भी अच्छे से सकती हूँ और समझ भी अच्छे से सकती हूँ, दोनों ही है, पर फिर भी पता नहीं आई कब बनूंगी. इन स्पाइट ऑफ द conflict, श्रीलंका हैज़ registered considerable economic growth and recorded high levels of human development. Sri Lanka was one of the first developing countries to successfully control the rate of the growth of population, the first country in the region to liberalize the economy, and it has had the highest per capita gross domestic product for many years. Right through the civil war, despite the ravages of internal conflict, it has maintained a democratic political system. ओके, इंडिया पाकिस्तान कन्फ्लिक्ट्स की बात करते हैं. लेट अस नाउ मूव फ्रॉम द डोमेस्टिक पॉलिटिक्स एंड टेक अ लुक एट द सम ऑफ द एरियाज ऑफ कन्फ्लिक्ट इन द इंटरनेशनल रिलेशंस इन दिस रीजन. द पोस्ट कोल्ड वॉर एरा हैज़ नॉट मीन्ड दैट द एंड ऑफ कन्फ्लिक्ट्स एंड tensions in this region. We have already noted that the conflicts around international democracy or ethnic differences, but there are also some very crucial conflicts of an international nature. Given the position of India in this region, most of these conflicts involve India. The most salient and overwhelming of these conflicts is of course the one between India and Pakistan. Soon after the partition, the two countries got embroiled in the conflict over the fate of the Kashmir, and the Pakistani government claimed that Kashmir belonged to it. Wars between India and Pakistan in 1947 to 1948 and 1965 failed to settle the matter, and the 1947 to 1948 war resulted in the division of the province into the Pakistan occupied कश्मीर एंड द इंडियन प्रोविंस ऑफ जम्मू एंड कश्मीर. लाइट फिर से आ जाएगी, इतनी देर थोड़ी भागती है. और जम्मू एंड कश्मीर डिवाइडेड बाय द लाइन ऑफ कंट्रोल इन 1971. इंडिया वॉज अ डिसीजिव वॉर अगेंस्ट द पाकिस्तान, बट द कश्मीर इशू रिमेन्ड अनसेटल्ड. अब इधर देखो ये क्या है. इंडो पाक रिलेशंस प्रोग्रेसेस फ्रॉम अ मेज ऑफ बंकर्स टू अ मेज डायलॉग टेबल्स. ये क्या है. अ व्यू ऑफ द करंट फेज ऑफ द इंडो पाक नेगोशिएशंस. फिर देखो ये क्या है. डिस्कशन ऑन द कश्मीर साउंड्स लाइक अ प्रॉपर्टी डिस्प्यूट बिटवीन द रूलर्स ऑफ इंडिया एंड पाकिस्तान. व्हाट डू द कश्मीरीज फील अबाउट इट. उसके बाद जो नेक्स्ट है वो क्या है, इंडियाज कंफ्लिक्ट विद द पाकिस्तान इज ऑल्सो ओवर स्ट्रेटेजिक इशूज लाइक द कंट्रोल ऑफ द सियाचिन ग्लेशियर and over acquisition of the arms. The arms race between the two countries assumed a new character with both states acquiring nuclear weapons and missiles to deliver such arms against each other in 1990s. In 1998, and India conducted nuclear explosion in Pokhran. Pakistan responded within a few days by carrying out nuclear tests in the Chagai Hills. Since then, India and Pakistan seem to have built a military relationships in which the possibility of a direct and full-scale war has declined. उसके बाद, but both the government continue to be suspicious of each other. The Indian government has blamed the Pakistan government for using a strategy of low-key violence by helping the Kashmiri militants with the arms, training, money, and protection to carry out terrorist strikes against India. And the Indian government also believes that Pakistan had aided the pro-Khalistanis militants with the arms and ammunitions during the period 1985 to 1995. Its spy agency, Inter-Services Intelligence (ISI), is alleged to be involved in the various anti-India campaigns in India's northeast, operating secretly through Bangladesh and Nepal. The government of Pakistan in turn blames the Indian government and its security agencies for fomenting trouble in the provinces of Sindh and Balochistan. India and Pakistan also have had problems over the sharing of river waters. Until 1916, they were locked in a fierce argument over the use of the rivers of the Indus Basin. Eventually, in 1916, with the help of the World Bank, India and Pakistan signed the Indus Waters Treaty, which had survived to this day, in spite of various military conflicts in which the two countries have been involved. There are still some minor differences about the interpretation of the Indus Water Treaty and the use of the river waters, and the two countries are not in the agreement over the demarcation line in the Sar Creek in the Run of Kutch, and the dispute seems minor, but there is an underlying worry that how the dispute is settled may have an impact on the control of sea resources in the area adjoining Sar Creek. India and Pakistan are holding negotiations on all these issues. India and its other neighbors, ये क्या है? India and its other neighbors. The governments of India and Bangladesh have had differences over several issues, including the sharing of the Ganga and the Brahmaputra river waters. And the Indian government has been unhappy with the Bangladesh's denial of illegal immigration to the India. Its support for the anti-Indian Islamic fundamentalist groups, Bangladesh's refusal to allow Indian troops to move through its territory to the northeastern India, and its decision not to export natural gas to India or allow Myanmar to do so through the Bangladeshi territory. Bangladeshi governments have felt that the Indian government behaves like a regional bully over the sharing of the river waters, encouraging rebellion in the Chittagong Hills tracts, trying to extract its natural gas, and being unfair in trade. The two countries could not resolve their boundary dispute for a long while. ये क्या बोल रही है? Why is it that every one of our neighbors has a problem with the India? Is there something wrong with our foreign policy or is it just our size? उसके बाद next जो है वो क्या है? Despite their differences, India and Bangladesh do cooperate on the many issues. Economic relations have improved considerably in the last 20 years. Bangladesh is a part of the India's Look East policy. Act East since 2014 policy that wants to link up with the Southeast Asia via Myanmar on disaster management and environmental issues. The two states have cooperated regularly. In 2015, they exchanged certain enclaves. Efforts are on to broaden the areas of cooperation further by identifying common threats and being more sensitive to each other's needs. Nepal and India enjoy a very special relationship that has very few parallels in the world. A treaty between the two countries allows the citizens of the two countries to travel to and work in the other country without visas and passports. Despite this special relationships, the governments of the two countries have had trade-related disputes in the past. The Indian government has often expressed displeasure at the warm relationship between the Nepal and China and at the Nepal government's inaction against anti-Indian elements. Indian security agencies sees the Maoist movements in Nepal as a growing security threat, given the rise of the Naxalite groups in the various Indian states from the Bihar in the north to the Andhra Pradesh in the south. Many leaders and citizens in Nepal think that the Indian government interferes in its internal affairs, has designs on its river waters and hydroelectricity and prevents Nepal, landlocked country, from the getting easier access the sea through the Indian territory. And nevertheless, Indo-Nepal relations are fairly stable and peaceful despite differences. Trade, scientific cooperation, common natural resources, electricity generation, and interlocking water management grids hold the two countries together. There is a hope that the consolidation of the democracy in Nepal will lead to improvements in the ties between the two countries. The difficulties in the relationship between the governments of the India and Sri Lanka are mostly over ethnic conflicts in the island nation. Indian leaders and citizens find it impossible to remain the neutral when Tamils are politically unhappy and are being killed after the military intervention in 1987. And the Indian government now prefers a policy of disengagement vis-a-vis Sri Lanka's internal rebels. India signed a free trade agreement with Sri Lanka, which strengthened relations between the two countries. India's help in the post-tsunami reconstruction in the Sri Lanka has also brought the two countries closer. इधर क्या दिख रहा है ये? Divide the classroom into 8 groups, as many as the number of countries and the number of students in each group may vary, reflecting the size of the countries of the South Asia. Name each group after a country and hand over a brief country profile to respective groups. Besides the basic information, include a short note on the contentious issues, disputes among the South Asian countries, and the issues could be those discussed in these chapter or an issue of relevance but not discussed in the chapter. And allow students to select an issue of their choice, and the dispute could be bilateral or multilateral, and the issue could be related to India given the geographic peculiarity of the region. Assign each group to find what initiative the governments involved have taken and the reasons for their failures in resolving the disputes. Students should assume the role of representing their respective countries and share their findings. उसके बाद क्या है? Ideas for the teachers क्या है? ये pair up the countries sharing the common issues, disputes. It could be two groups in the case of a bilateral issue or more in the case of a multilateral issue. Examples of the bilateral issues include the Jammu and Kashmir dispute between the India and Pakistan and the migrant problem between the India and Bangladesh. Multilateral issues including the creation of a free trade zone or tackling the terrorism. Groups should negotiate on the proposals and counter proposals within a time limit. The teacher is to take note of the outcome of the negotiations, and the focus should be on the areas of agreement and disagreement, and link the outcome of the negotiations with the prevailing situation among the countries of the South Asia. Talk about the difficulties involved in the negotiating on a political issue based on the observation made. Conclude by discussing the importance of the accommodating each other's interests for the sake of the peaceful coexistence. उसके बाद हम क्या बात कर रहे थे यहाँ पे? देखो इधर क्या दिखा रखा है इस चित्र में. व्हाट डज दिस कार्टून टेल यू अबाउट द रोल ऑफ इंडिया एंड पाकिस्तान इन द प्रोसेस ऑफ रीजनल कोऑपरेशन इन द साउथ एशिया. इधर देखो, इंडिया enjoys a very special relationship with the Bhutan too and does not have any major conflict with the Bhutanese government. The efforts made by the Bhutanese monarch to weed out the guerrillas and militants from the northeastern India that operate in his country have been helpful in India. India is involved in big hydroelectric projects in Bhutan and remains the Himalayan kingdom's biggest source of development aid. India's ties with the Maldives remain warm and cordial. In November 1988, when some Tamil mercenaries from Sri Lanka attacked the Maldives, the Indian Air Force, the Navy reacted quickly to the Maldives' request to help stop the invasion. India has also contributed towards the island's economic development, tourism, and fisheries. You may have noticed that India has various problems with its smaller neighbors in the region. Given its size and power, they are bound to be suspicious of India's intentions. The Indian government, on the other hand, often feels exploited by its neighbors. It does not like the political instability in these countries, fearing it can help outside powers to gain the influence in the region. The smaller countries fear that India wants to be a regionally dominant power. Not all conflicts in South Asia are between India and its neighbors. Nepal and Bhutan, as well as Bangladesh and Myanmar, have had disagreements in the past over the migration of the ethnic Nepalis into Bhutan and the Rohingyas from the Myanmar into the India and Bangladesh, respectively. Bangladesh and Nepal have some differences over the future of the Himalayan river waters, and the major conflicts and differences, though, are between India and the others, partly because of the geography of the region in which India is located centrally and is therefore the only country that borders the others. उसके बाद जो नेक्स्ट है क्या दिखा रखा है, ये क्या है? हे मिस्टर हु, ट्रेड, कॉमर्स, इकोनॉमी, वाई डोंट यू जस्ट स्टिक टू कोर इश्यूज विद इंडिया? दिख रहे हो? इधर जो नेक्स्ट है वो क्या है? द umpire has to decide whether ball is in the court of India or Pakistan. Jamali. The two cartoons, one from the India and the other from the Pakistan, interpret the role of two key players who are also interested in the region. Do you notice any commonalities between their perspectives? इधर क्या है? Every association seems to have emerged for the trade is trade more important than people to people relations. इधर क्या है? Peace and cooperation. Do the states of South Asia cooperate with each other, or do they only keep fighting with each other? In spite of the many conflicts, the states of South Asia recognizes the importance of cooperation and friendly relationships among themselves. The South Asian Association for the Regional Cooperation, SAARC, is a major regional initiative by the South Asian states to evolve cooperation through the multilateral means. Multilateral means it began in 1985. Unfortunately, due to persisting political differences, SARC has not had much success. SARC members signed the South Asian Free Trade SAFTA agreement, which promised the formation of a free trade zone for the whole of the South Asia. A new chapter of the peace and cooperation might evolve in the South Asia if all the countries in the region allow free trade across the border. This is the spirit behind the idea of SAFTA. The agreement was signed in 2004 and came into effect on 1 January 2006. SAFTA aims at lowering trade tariffs, but some of our neighbors fear that SAFTA is a way for the India to invade their markets and to influence their societies and politics through the commercial ventures and a commercial presence in their countries. India thinks that there are real economic benefits for all from the SAFTA, and that a region that trades more freely will be able to cooperate better on the political issues. Some in the India think that SAFTA is not worth the trouble since India already has bilateral agreements with the Bhutan, Nepal and Sri Lanka. उसके बाद जो next, although India-Pakistan relations seem to be a story of endemic conflict and violence, and there have been a series of efforts to manage the tensions and build peace, and the two countries have agreed to undertake the confidence building measures to reduce the risk of war. Social activists and prominent personalities have collaborated to create an atmosphere of friendship among the people of the both countries. Leaders have met at summits to understand each other better and to find the solutions to the major problems between the two neighbors. A number of bus routes have been opened up between the two countries. Trade between the India and Pakistan had increased and visas had been more easily granted. However, in the recent times, the situation has changed and no region exists in the vacuum. It is influenced by outside powers and events, no matter how much it may try to insulate itself from the non-regional powers. China and the United States remain key players in the South Asian politics. Sino-Indian relations have improved significantly in the last 20 years, but China's strategic partnerships with the Pakistan remains a major irritant, and the demands of the development and globalization have brought the two Asian giants closer, and their economic ties have multiplied rapidly since 1991. American involvement in the South Asia has rapidly increased after the Cold War, and the US has had good relations with both India and Pakistan since the end of the Cold War and increasingly works as a moderator in the India-Pakistan relations. Economic reforms and liberal economic policies in both the countries have greatly increased the depth of American participation in the region, and the large South Asian diasporas in the US and the huge size of the population and the markets of the region also give America an added stake in the future of the regional security and peace. However, whether South Asia will continue to be known as a conflict-prone zone or will evolve into the regional bloc with some common cultural features and trade interests will depend more on the people and the governments of the region than any other outside powers. ठीक है, थैंक यू सो मच फॉर वॉचिंग एंड स्टे कनेक्टेड. कंटेम्प्रेरी साउथ एशिया डिस्कस कर लिया. नेक्स्ट चैप्टर में हम डिस्कस करेंगे अबाउट द इंटरनेशनल ऑर्गेनाइजेशंस.